Welcome back to Bombadil Tree Farm, an American Tree Farm System certified family forest since 1978. Chapter 1 of this series explored the decision-making that led to a 3-block clear-cut harvest as the first step in the process to improve a shamefully abused and degraded forest. Chapter 2 illustrated the post-harvest establishment of trails that will provide access throughout all subsequent years of involvement. And Chapter 3 was a confidence builder that took us to Bombadil Nutsvalt in Georgia, where efforts to restore a healthy and vibrant forest was not just wishful thinking, but a very impressive success. In this Chapter 4 video, we will examine what nature has given us for regeneration in the clearcuts and to begin to plan our next forest. I am very fortunate to have the experience and expertise of several professionals to advise me in this process. This man could very well be called the Johnny Appleseed of northern Maine, who, during his greater than 20-year career with Irving Woodlands, planned, organized, and supervised the planting of more than 60 million trees on more than 80,000 acres. 80,000 acres is about 32,000 hectares. First, Jesse and I will inspect our northeast clearcut of 10 acres where, after one full growing season following our February 2019 harvest, nature has blessed us with abundant natural regeneration of quaking and big-tooth aspen. 10 acres is about 4 hectares. But we have a lot of aspen that have come in here naturally. They obviously like it right here. They seem to be coppice sprouts from that one stump right in there that was hidden in amongst all the rotten fir that was harvested out of here. And as far as I'm concerned, they like it. They're a valuable tree for wildlife. There's a good commercial market for them, and it adds the diversity to this stand that I would like. Would you agree that places like this, we just let nature take its course?
Yes, because you're fighting yourself. If you try where I'm standing to get down through the organic layer to get to mineral soil, you're now in muck. You can hear it squishing. That spruce tree, if it were to be derived from seed, would do okay, but as a seedling from the nursery, it's going to die. So
again, since my goal is to end up with a forest of a better diversity, a better mix, the last thing I want to be doing is putting any effort into planting these wet sites.
Yep.
In fact, some of these little vernal pools created by skidder ruts from many years ago are actually, from the wildlife standpoint, wonderful things to have. The breeding grounds for reptiles and amphibians, like this guy right here, and other things. So do you agree? Just let this alone. Let nature do what it wants to do here.
Don't mess with it.
And our frog agrees.
A lot of your ground here, when you get down through the organic, is wet. So always these sites are a little bit more challenging just because of the cooler, damper soils. And that's why I get so excited when I see that red, exposed, good, wonderful mineral soil. And I say, dude, put a tree in there. It's begging to have a tree. In my clear cuts, when I see this, I go, these are the places where I will get the best opportunity of survival with my trees. And I'm saying, listen, I would love to see you sneak right up in this corner a red spruce, because it's just begging to be planted. No, don't put any here. But then I would say, over here, my friend, I would sneak a red spruce. And then over here, I might sneak one. And then I'd come over here, and I give a good bunch of kicks to get myself through the organic. And typical of these kind of mixed wood forests here, very often you've got anywhere from 6 to 12 inches of organic. That organic is great in that it will trap and retain moisture, but your tree roots are meant to grow through the mineral soil. So to get it established, it really wants to be tucked into mineral soil. So the scuffing is extremely important. You've got to get through that organic. Not plant until you get down to your mineral soil. Now, fortunately, the organic later's not too bad here. You can see that the reddish gray soil, we hit it right away. Some of the spots where I've kicked, you got to go quite a ways. Get down through your organic.
The man walking beside me is a certified wildlife biologist whose 50-year career included 30 years with Maine's Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, where he was assigned to Maine's Bureau of Public Lands, which later became the Bureau of Parks and Lands, to advise its foresters on wildlife issues pertinent to forest management. Joe is a good friend whose opinions I highly respect, and he has kindly agreed to look at my clear-cut harvest blocks and comment on reforestation issues from the standpoint of wildlife. Our first stop will be the same 10-acre or 4-hectare harvest block.
Maintaining your access trails in an open condition like this will provide habitat for American woodcock. The males will use this as a singing ground during the breeding season in the spring. They don't like vegetation on the ground. It'll provide some protection from mammalian predators because they're on the ground most of the time when they're trying to attract females. And the adjacent habitat will provide dense areas for nesting habitat for the female woodcock. So you get grouse and woodcock if you maintain these access trails in an open condition like this.
Now, Joe, over in this corner I have a lot of red maple sprouts that I was thinking of killing and planting probably spruce on this site. From the wildlife standpoint, what do you say? Should I go ahead and kill these red maple sprouts or not?
Absolutely not. You can see that this one has been heavily utilized by deer and or moose. Almost every stem on this one has been utilized, and these will stay available until the sprout growth grows up out of reach of the deer or the moose.
The area where you're standing right now, Joe, is obviously a wet area, at least seasonally wet. It's dry now. We've had a very dry summer. But I have no intent on trying to reforest this area. There were never much in the line of trees in here before the clear cut, and it's not a good site to put effort into for reforestation. From the wildlife standpoint, is there anything I could do to improve it for wildlife?
Yes, I think that what I would do is a natural drainage way for this land, and I would try and construct an artificial vernal pool by digging, removing some soil 2 feet deep, maybe 10 by 20, without blocking the natural drainage, and you'd get amphibians and reptiles would utilize the vernal pool.
From the standpoint of wildlife, what should I be doing in this, in all this regenerated aspen?
I wouldn't do anything. Leave it just the way it is and let it grow. It is prime grouse habitat now because of the large number of stems per acre and the structure that it provides for aerial predator prevention and brood habitat and eventually food.
Yeah. Hey, one of the things that I pick up in a lot of the reading that I do is how important aspen is to ruffed grouse up in areas like this that have a heavy blanket of snow for so many months during the winter. Is it really that important to encouraging, maintaining the populations of ruffed grouse up here in Aroostook County, Maine?
Absolutely. If you look at the map of the United States and the distribution of aspen and the distribution of ruffed grouse, they overlap perfectly. If there's no aspen, especially in the northern part of the United States, if there are no aspen, there are no grouse, because the buds, especially the male buds, provide high protein food in the wintertime when nothing else is available.
Joe, here at the southernmost end of the Clearcut, I've decided to leave an opening within the forest. It's already forested on 3 sides, and right about where I'm standing, it doesn't show up on the video scene right now, but where I'm standing is on the edge of the Clearcut. That will soon become tall, established forest. This opening isn't all that big. I don't think it's 1/4 of an acre. 1/2 at the most. So we're talking somewheres less than 1/2 of a hectare. Are openings like this within the forest beneficial to wildlife?
Absolutely they are. A male woodcock would use this as a singing ground. Ground nesting birds might use it. Sparrows, many of the sparrow species would use it. So it's a really important habitat in a heavily forested area.
When we were making this opening, Joe, I deliberately had stumps and slash pushed up into piles rather than evenly distributed, where they could actually not only rot faster, but not look so darn ugly. I deliberately left them in these heaps because I was under the impression that they can be beneficial to certain forms of wildlife. Am I wrong in that thinking?
No, as usual, you're right on the money. These provide habitat for small mammals, snakes, some of the common non-poisonous snakes that we have here in Maine, as well as some songbirds, especially the sparrow species. White-throated sparrow love to nest in these brush piles.
The man standing beside me is the consulting forester who has advised me for more than 30 years. His greatest attribute, in my opinion, is his ability to think outside the box and critically examine accepted recommendations and practices based upon evolving knowledge. Our first stop once again will be the same 10-acre, 4-hectare harvest block. Today is September 24th in the year 2020, and the block has completed 2 full growing seasons since harvested. Hey, Sir Ken, I was in here with Jesse and also, the silviculturalist, and I was also in here with Joe, the wildlife biologist. Both of them agreed with me in that my plan of not trying to fight with this aspen, but taking it as really a gift, this great regeneration, and nurturing it for the next forest. I'm hoping you'll agree. If not, what do you think?
Vince, personally, I think what you're doing right here has got to be doing it right. You look at this is 2 growing seasons. This is the first season right here, and this is the second season. You gotta, if you're gonna try to kill this, you're gonna spend more money. You're just fighting nature, period. And you look around at some of these other places, you can see where the moose are already browsing. So you're ahead of yourself.
Okay.
As I said, you look right here, you can already see the amount of moose browse. All of those out behind me are...
And you know, Ken, when I was here just last week with the wildlife biologist, none of this moose browse had occurred. And so that fresh pile of moose dung that we just came across on our way in must have been dropped by that moose while it was in here munching away just within the last few days. Before moving on, I want to revisit the scene that I used to open and close Chapter 3 of this video series. And you will remember me stating that, despite its ugliness, I was confident that soon a healthy new forest would occupy the site. 18 months after the clear-cut harvest and only 11 months after I shot this scene, a similar spot within our 10-acre, 4-hectare northeast clearcut boasted this abundance of life, sending up tree stems through the protecting and nourishing slash. This slash helps create a microclimate at the soil surface that moderates temperature and retains moisture, and as it slowly decays, serves as an organic mulch and slow-release fertilizer, nurturing the new forest. With knowledge of nature's ways and nature's secrets, what often appears so ugly to the human eye takes on a different meaning. Here we witness the birth of another forest of hope. So where did all of this aspen regeneration come from? In only 2 growing seasons, much of it is taller than 10 feet. 10 feet is 3 meters. Scattered throughout the thicket of decrepit and decaying fir that had once occupied this site was a scattering of pole-sized aspen, some of whose stumps you see here. I never would have guessed that their roots extended so far through the surrounding root masses of densely packed fir, but fortunately I was wrong. Both big-tooth and quaking aspen have stem buds along their roots that remain dormant in response to an inhibitory hormone produced by the above-ground portion of the tree. In the absence of inhibitory hormone following removal of the above-ground portion, the dormant buds sprout in what is termed coppice regeneration. Benefiting from a large vital already formed living root mass, the sprouts grow quickly. On our site we have, after only 2 growing seasons, stems exceeding 10 feet in height. 10 feet is about 3 meters. As Jesse remarked,
the forest is a relentless monster at reclaiming itself.
We easily arrived at a consensus on the new forest for the 10-acre or 4-hectare northeast clearcut. We will nurture the aspen natural regeneration and supplement it with an enrichment planting of spruce, staying completely out of the wet areas shown here in orange, with the exception of possibly creating a vernal pool as Joe suggested. Our middle clearcut of approximately 11 acres, which is about 4.5 hectares, presents a different situation. The northern approximately 3 acres, a little over 1 hectare, shown outlined in pink, does offer good, predominantly aspen natural regeneration. However, the remaining 7.7 acres, a little over 3 hectares, shown outlined in yellow, is predominantly herbaceous and woody stem weeds that include dense patches of wild raspberry bushes that I am certain will require site preparation prior to reforestation. Joining Jesse on this occasion is another Irving Woodlands forester, Chris, who now manages much of the site preparation formerly managed by Jesse. You met Chris before in Chapter 1 of this series. I am with them discussing what to choose and how to go about establishing a new forest on this site. Hey, as far as what it looks like here, Norway spruce, red spruce, mix of the two?
With an impending budworm epidemic, I suggest red spruce, but then I think about Don Raymond's piece. We had significant survival issues this summer, the summer following when it was planted, and I wasn't nearly so excited about red spruce.
And see, I have a strong prejudice in favor of Norway spruce because I've shown you my plantations over there. Those were planted and were just getting themselves established during the last big budworm outbreak. They were planted in 78, and the budworm was killing forests around here throughout the 80s. They handled it very, very well, but then again, they didn't have high canopies. I guess what I'm saying is I'm willing to take the risk of it being touched a little bit by a budworm outbreak, but I'm not worried about losing them.
Are you comfortable with Norway spruce here?
Yep, I put Norway here. If it was my woodlot, I put Norway all day, every day.
Yeah.
So,
on some of these little low areas where it looks like it'd be a little bit wet, in those places though, I could just stick red spruce in the ground, right?
Could, but like we discussed, it sucks for everybody where it's wet, regardless of the species. Norway likes it the least. You don't need to obsess over it, but if you want a bit of diversity, wouldn't be a problem at all to put some red spruce in those wetter spots, yes.
Now let's get Joe's ideas from the perspective of wildlife. Now, Joe, here we are on the middle clear cut, and this is the one that even before the harvest we had predicted would be the best for reforestation with spruce, based upon the soils, the drainage, the topography, and the some other aspects. And sure enough, after the harvest, it turned out to be what we expected. Hey, as you can see here, what we mostly have is not any quality regeneration like we had on the first clear cut. We have mostly some bushes, raspberries, grasses, stuff like that. My plan here is to prepare this site for planting probably, I shouldn't say probably, more than 90% into a mixture of spruce species. Now, from the standpoint of wildlife, am I doing appreciable harm by taking this regrowth of bushes and turning it into a predominantly long life species spruce forest?
Absolutely not. This is a fairly small proportion of your total ownership here, and putting it into long-lived species that'll create a different kind of forest. You're just changing one type of wildlife habitat for another type that you don't have. So I view it as a plus to plant trees here for the future.
And of course, I would never think of moving forward without Ken's input. So Ken, right in here, this is the clear cut, the middle clear cut, where Jesse felt, and I agree, would be most favorable for us to put time, effort, and money into site preparation and replanting into spruce. There's not any quality natural regeneration in here. Joe came and looked at this same site and said that, sure, that wildlife benefit from just about anything that's growing, but that I'm not going to be disrupting any of the wildlife balance out of our 200 and some acre tree farm here by planting roughly 10 acres into spruce. So what's your take? You guys have any objections to this being where we site prep, disc trench, and plant spruce?
Oh, absolutely not. Most of what you've got for regen here is stump sprouts from the hardwoods that are probably never going to make a quality log or even pulpwood for sale. By putting that spruce in, you'll be filling in the holes and the gaps. There's, as you look out there, raspberries that are growing there, and those are going to take up space for anywhere for up to maybe 15 years. Why lose the 15 years?
Once again, we have easily reached a consensus. We will nurture the natural regeneration within the pink outlined area and site prep and plant spruce within the area outlined in yellow. The harvest in our southernmost clear cut could be argued not to meet the forestry rules of Maine's definition of a clear cut. Several islands of broadleaf trees, another of pole-sized red spruce, and a cluster of large hemlocks break up the harvest block. Several areas are too wet to even consider putting effort. Including the residual islands and wet areas, the entire harvest block covers about 13.5 acres, or about 5.5 hectares. Rarely did we find quality natural regeneration, and Jesse and Chris recommended site prepping and planting spruce on the higher, well-drained sites. Joe provided input on some of the wet areas and residual islands of broadleaf trees from the perspective of wildlife. Joe, this is an area where the harvester left a lot of logging slash and debris. Also cut through a lot of saplings at a rather high level. Even to my eye, this is ugly. Very, very ugly. How do wildlife view such an area?
Wildlife like messy, and here we've got large woody material, which is really important for returning nutrients to the site and providing habitat for small mammals, reptiles, and these cut off stumps provide perches for ground nesting birds like sparrows that like these brush piles as well to nest in.
What we're looking at here are one of the islands of hardwood that we excluded from the clear-cut harvest. From the standpoint of wildlife, did we do the right thing?
Absolutely. A retention patch like this, and the fact that it's hardwood and a softwood dominant site, and it's a pole stage, it's still immature, but it provides immediate habitat that's not available elsewhere.
Now for Ken's input. Although the leeward side of the residual island of red spruce is quality ground for replanting, Ken suspected that we would find seedlings there that had sprouted from seed shed from the island's red
one
spruce.
right here, down here in the slash. Okay, open it up a little bit here. Frost got these real good, but it didn't bother that little spruce growing on an old stump.
The man has a sort of X-ray vision that enables him to see through the slash and raspberry bushes
Right here you
to
got
locate spruce seedlings only a few centimeters tall.
That has been partially covered up by some of the slash, but this is this past year's growth, as dry as the summer has been, but it has already responded to the open sky above it. So.
Sure enough, he found that an area extending perhaps 30 meters leeward of the spruce island was well stocked with natural regeneration of spruce, along with some other conifers. Consequently, we will take advantage of this gift from nature and nurture the natural regeneration as it grows to become part of the next forest. Ken, when Joe, the wildlife biologist, was in this same area, and I showed him all of this ugly logging slash left behind, he didn't find it ugly at all. And that's because he said wildlife love it messy, and described all the different ways from the simplest creatures on the forest floor up the food chain, how they all benefit from this slowly decaying logging slash that's left behind. Now, strictly from the forestry standpoint, does this provide any benefit?
The biggest benefits that you're going to get from it is it's going to provide some shade so that you don't get a burnout from the direct sunlight. The other thing, that as this logging slash starts to deteriorate, it's going to start to hold more moisture, and it will hold the moisture down on this piece of ground without allowing for any excess runoff. So yeah, you'll get benefits from that point of view. From a nutrient point of view, most of the nutrients occur within the leaves and the needles of the trees when they were first taken down, and the bigger pieces that are laying on the ground do not have any great amount of nutrient impact. It's the needles and the leaves and the fine branches that deteriorate first.
So, in our southernmost harvest block, we have a quality site of about 1.5 acres, which is about 6/10 of a hectare, outlined in pink. But within the area below our access trail, shown here in red, Ken pointed out the good natural mixed regeneration of conifers, including large numbers of red spruce. Therefore, we will only site prep and replant the area above the access trail. There is another quality site in the tail of the harvest block, outlined in yellow. We will site prep and replant this 2 acre, which is about 8/10 of a hectare, site. We remain undecided about the area outlined in white. We will leave the remaining harvest block, some of which is wet ground and much of which is occupied by residual islands of broadleaf trees or conifers, for nature to choose its future. In the next video in this series, we will explore site preparation to include disc trenching and herbicide application. Until then, I bid you a warm, well, actually a chilly farewell from Bombadil Tree Farm, where last week I completed this winter's harvest, and this, the last load of balsam fir stud logs, rolled out on January 26, 2022.